Osiris.
Welcome to the Saint Disruption Podcast, where brilliant musicians, poets, and visionaries come together to share their creative collaborations and explore what it means to be human in these times.
Well, welcome everybody. I am so delighted to be with you in this new episode of the Saint Disruption Podcast. Today we are debuting a new music and poetry work that was recently minted by our special guests, Poetikah and Vernon Reid. And I think today we're going to have a pretty exciting discussion about how that was unpacked and all the beautiful and I think very relevant layers of meaning that are in both the poem and the music. So our other esteemed guests, in addition to legendary guitarist and changemaker Vernon Reid, Poetikah, who hails from London and is one of London's, great, bright, shining stars of poetry, performance poetry, and music. And we're also joined by the Saint Disruption Podcast co-host John Medeski and legendary lyricist, songwriter, composer Brian Jackson. So welcome, everyone. It's so great to be here with you.
It's good to be here, Jeff. Thank you.
Good to be here. Good to finally see faces. I've spoken to a lot of people in the last 7 months on the email, so it's nice to actually,
Absolutely.
It's good.
So to kick us off, without further ado, we're going to have a listen. This is the debut of Storyteller Nation by lyrics by Poetikah and music by Vernon Reid.
That's us.
That's you.
Hey, this is the first time we've ever seen each other. It's completely wild. It's completely wild to me.
Crazy.
I mean, I got a Tweety cup, so it just the wig is so visible.
All right, here we go.
There's no inspiration here anymore. Ain't been seeing it nor feeling it. Where's the spark? I've spent much of continuum in the dark, removed from time and space, removed these rhymes from face, so in transit the messages can find their place. I encrypt missing hieroglyphs on pressed papyrus reeds, making it hard to read, so our wicked foes and enemies can stay far from we. Sending ravens and smoke signals to other villages. Request an audience with the king with special honors and privileges. Request an audience with the queen, calling the scribes, the magi's, everyone draped in golds and greens. The dreams I've seen, I know what they mean. The images deep in between the subconscious machine. See? Just breathing, looking out from being inwards, learning on life's job, Earth's intern, learning whilst living, laughing through the pain and ting, yearning whilst giving, grafted till I get my wings, flying now, soaring through the ethers, sandman for the sleepers, whilst my feet stay planted on the ground in my sneakers. Me crep them get me to the mic and now I'm coming through your speakers. To her intuition. Feminine warrior women steady in their positions. We got metal knives and metal minds. The spirit's strong, don't break the line. You never break formation. In the drummer, warrior, storyteller nations. I've never needed a reason to rhyme. Just inspiration and a season of time. I season with time. These lines manifest themselves. Poet's job is to channel and find the space to align. The answers are here. Storyteller Nation.
Epic. Vernon Poetikah, my goodness.
It's funny to hear it because the earlier version was a little bit different and kind of had more electronic bass and blah, blah, blah. And Poetikah gave me some notes, really good notes. And then I kind of brought in the more African percussion, you know what I mean? And then I played I actually played bass and took the synth bass out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in working with it, like it was a continuous poem when I first heard it. Yeah. And then I put in like kind of like line breaks for space. Yes. And I think it worked. I hope you liked it, but you gave really good notes, and then I responded to those notes that you gave me, and I'm really proud of the piece, and it's a fantastic poem. It's like almost like a griot mission statement.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's amazing just collaborating with you anyway. So it's different when you're not there and you sort of just send your things and you
right.
And it's like, okay, let's see how it sounds from this other end of things, from another being, person, and just seeing how it marries together. So yeah, it's always a journey. It's always a journey when it comes to spoken word because there's no structure.
Right. And it could go any one of different ways. I kind of initially when I heard it, I thought about, kind of Linton Kwesi Johnson a little bit, and I conceived it a little bit as a dub. And then, when you mentioned that, I said, oh, you know what, let me think about the African, kind of percussion and the way they play against the Western kind of trap drums. Yeah. And so I'm happy you liked it because I was like, seriously on. I sent it out, and then I was like, okay. So
it's different. It's different than what I imagined it, but sometimes there isn't any sound when I'm writing. Sometimes I'm just writing, and the words are a melody of their own because most of spoken word and poetry is a cappella and without anything accompanying it. So it's interesting to hear what you hear.
Well, it's just what's interesting. What was interesting to me is that all of the things that you all just mentioned were the things that stood out to me the most. Like you mentioned the lyrics, the vocals. You mentioned the bass. You mentioned that the African percussion, and those were the first things that like really caught me and caught my attention the most. And I love the way you put the 6/8 underneath, for the bata feel, of that really.
I just learned what a 6/8 is, today. I just learned what that was today. Like music, I'm learning piano. You see, I just come from a lesson, and she's like, "Oh, the 6/8," and I'm like, "What? Yeah, the 6/8." And the 6, and then I was just like, what is all? It's like learning another language. So I was just like, oh, that's good. I just learned that an hour ago.
And here we are talking about it. No, I mean, that was brilliant. That was brilliant because to me, whenever I hear, a 6/8 rhythm, and particularly when I hear it done with bata drums, it always brings me back to the West African traditions. It always brings me. It always focuses me, back on the root of Black music. Yeah. So I thought that was really great. It's just a piece of the tree, a piece of the root right there in the middle of it.
Well, man, that's a lot. That means a lot to me coming from you. It means a lot. And part of the thing is I was inspired partly by thinking about like the stuff that Herbie Hancock did, like right before, like post Miles and right before Headhunters, the sextant, you know what I mean, type of thing. And the way he used kind of sequencing, like the Patrick Gleason art type of sequencing as a kind of, this also like thinking about like my favorite Weather Report record, Mysterious Traveler, like the first track, Nubian Sundance, the conception of Africa, it's almost like pre-Wakanda, Africa as a kind of electronic ritual space, and how that's very current now in terms of the hip hop and trap music coming out of the continent, So that's all with a little bit of the Caribbean dub vibe as well, So
I love the adjectives, I'm a wordsmith. I'm just a sucker for anything that
Obvious.
sounds good audibly, but I felt like I was like this traveling phantom being, just traveling, telling stories. I mean, being a griot is the oldest thing in the world, really, in terms of
exactly
media or performing, or just without anything else, just the person and that sound and that power. So yeah.
There's also the kind of concept of even, the art ensemble has this thing, Black music, ancient to future, right? And the idea now that's very current is the idea Afrofuturism, projecting oneself into the future, and to take kind of really old values, really old ancestral values, and combine the ancestral with emergence, like emergent technology, emergent modalities of expression. So we have like the in a way, these kind of primal, very old stories, but you're a young person, a young woman who's connected to those old values and bringing them forward through time.
Honestly, someone introduced me as someone who's about 1,001 years old. It's just like it's a not a running thing across the poets in London, but it's just everyone knows it's going to sound mystical or biblical or spiritual, and it's just it's a story. It's like I take people into this zone, and they are there for that time, and then I release them back into the world as normal humans, basically. Yeah.
Well, the title Storyteller Nation, and everything that we've been saying so far is really, Vernon, I love your articulation. We're moving forward in a very punctuated evolutionary time now, and sometimes the best way to move forward is to make sure you remember what the ancestral medicine, the ancestral wisdom is, and this idea of Storyteller Nation. When I saw that title, Poetikah, it got me so excited because storytelling is the original learning. It is the original way that we find a place of reference, an anchor in this universe that can be very confusing and very challenging. And we don't, as human beings, as two-leggeds on this planet, we have spent most of our time learning in circles around a fire with our elders, in nature, listening to nature, not in a friggin' classroom. So much of what your poem evokes is, and Vernon, the music, the music behind it just evokes this sense of, okay, folks, we are really, we're accelerated, moving forward, and it's really so important to look back, to really understand what made humanity successful in the ancient times.
Yeah, so much of it is lost. I mean, that's one of the most incredible things to me is the idea of recorded history, which is not all of history. In fact, we have the merest fraction. You know what I mean? We have the tiniest bit, like when the Nag Hammadi scrolls, were found. Like people have been burning the scrolls for like firewood, and then somebody said, "Hey, maybe we shouldn't burn those." So whatever they recovered, they already burnt like a gang of those scrolls, and it's those kind of things that are so shocking. You know what I mean? And so like funny because we'll accept a certain narrative.
Yes.
But the thing is, that narrative, there's also another narrative. There are other narratives that contribute to that narrative. And and we can't, I mean, depending on how much speculation or detective work you're prepared to do, you know, like we'll leave certain things out, like Shaka Zulu, right? You know, Shaka Zulu was not defeated by, you know, colonialism. His brothers, you know, there was family rivalry, right? So when you get like the calendar, the calendar that's the Budweiser calendar back in the days, right? They have these kind of Black History calendars, and they'd have like a personage and say Shaka Zulu was a great African leader. And it's great. You take it and you say he was never defeated by the the British or the Boers or whatever. And then you find out, oh yeah, but sibling rivalry did him in, which is also about family, right? The whole notion of family is funny because family is like, you know, we drag that out, and it's kind of like, yeah, man, because we want to assume that family is positive, the hearth and all that. No, that's not necessarily, right?
Necessarily, yeah.
Right? Not necessarily. And the things that we see, that's the funny thing about stories and narratives, because everybody has them and everybody utilizes them, you know, for good and ill. And that's also part of the why stories are important, is because not just like Poetikah is telling the story, but it's the way, it's her voice. It's the story she's telling, but it's her voice telling the story. And it's actually two stories in one.
It's interesting what you say about what you first started mentioning about the burning of the scrolls, you know, and it's kind of an example that of the fact that we always seem to undervalue knowledge over, you know, we always seem to undervalue knowledge over quote unquote survival, you know, as if knowledge was not essential to survival, you know, as though it's some secondary thing, you know, well, after I eat, you know, then I can learn, you know, but you have to learn to eat, you know, everything begins with knowledge, and it always seems to take a back seat in our evolutionary process. Until we don't, until we need that knowledge. And then a lot of times, as you pointed out, it's burnt. We burned it up.
Yeah.
Could that undervaluing be because we are not storytelling? We're not learning by storytelling. You know, the thing that makes storytelling different than teaching is that storytelling is like, it gives the person's whole body, their whole essence, the opportunity to receive it, where teaching is like, it's your, you know, mind to mind, head to head. You know, when I've sat with elders, it's a different experience receiving the wisdom, the information, than sitting in the classroom. It's a whole body experience. And somehow that brings it into a different place in terms of priority and importance, I think.
I think because you're relearning the information multiple times, and you become the student and the teacher simultaneously, kind of the same way where ancestors and descendants simultaneously. But the first bit of information is when I'm downloading the information, right, and it's coming through. The second part that I'm learning about is when I'm writing it down. And then when I'm giving it back, then I'm learning it again. And then every time I read it, I'm learning it again. But I'm learning like it's new. I could read something like 3 years later and I'm like, wow, that's some serious scrollage. Like, how did I do that? I don't know. It's there. It's coming, you know, I'm learning it. But I'm also teaching by reciting, by giving it, by being a poet. Someone basically bowed to me on my gig on Friday. I was like, that was powerful. They kept saying, that's powerful, that's powerful. For me, it's normal now.
Right.
That's normal now. I'm like, this is just how information comes through. Exactly. For me. You know, hardly any of it. I didn't read it. It's just, it's a gathering of what I already know and then new data. And then it makes this thing.
Downloading. I like that.
Well, some teachers are, I mean, I think it's like any other vocation on a level. Like there are teachers who are born to it, who are really good at it, who are inspiring, just like teaching or anything else. You know, the teachers that inspired us are really like the same teacher. They have an enthusiasm, they have a sense of humor, they have a deep knowledge. They have insight into what each student, the way people learn. The systems are primed to kind of teach a kind of medium, you know what I mean, an averaged out, quote unquote, person. And then there's always a meta factor. There's always another story going along with the story. Like the person who teaching, winding up in a classroom was not really their plan for their life. So they're faced with these children, or they're faced with their students, and they kind of hate being there, but it's a job, so they're doing the job that they have to do. So that person is going to be a terrible teacher. They hate where they are. They resent the fact that whatever didn't happen in their own narrative didn't happen. And the other entity or person who's really digs it, who's really into books, who's really into math, who's really into it, they can transmit a bit of their passion, a bit of their love, if you will. And some students, students will yawn and roll their eyes, but out of that, some students will pick up on that. They will pick up on that. You can pick up on when the teacher has a thought about who you are as an identity. Yeah. You pick up on that. Kids pick up on if an adult doesn't really want to be in the room. They pick up on it. I remember I had a teacher who came in and she, she was teaching what subject? She taught math. And she had a way of just getting everyone to listen to her was because she never raised her voice. And she didn't react to disrupt. She didn't react to people acting out. But she had a quiet way of saying, well, blah, 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 da, 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 da. And you had to kind of go, what? What did she say?
Yeah. It's true. It's true.
And she was interesting because she was interesting because she was unflappable. Like she didn't, I said, okay, whatever. Da, 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 da.
See if you're really listening to the teacher. Like, did you just catch what I said? If not, okay.
I feel like the best teachers that I had for whatever it was, whether it was, they always seemed to embody what it was they were teaching. It wasn't they were just passing on this knowledge. They were, which actually parallels what Poetikah was saying about, whether the knowledge is received or downloaded or whether it's learned, if you embody it, and then if you really embody it when you present it, people are going to feel it, and I think that's like where the storytelling tradition is, and I think the best teachers kind of are like that. They're kind of like storytellers, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
It is somehow, when you have any kind of teaching, whether it's received or from someone else, it's like you then, if you really feel it, and it's really something you resonate with, and you're resonating in a certain way, and then when you present it, that resonance is felt, by other people, so yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering, because I feel like that's sort of also like this ties into, for me, when we talk about like, what are your influences? And people I say, well, I'm influenced by John Coltrane, and I've never met John Coltrane, nor have I been in the room with him. I've listened to his records. So like, that's always my thing. What do you mean? Or when writers talk about something you're doing, they say he's influenced by this or that. But I think you're influenced by who you actually had some sort of transmission contact with. It doesn't even have to be in the field that you're talking about. It can be any, it could be anything. Who are your influences? It could be from. Doesn't have to, it doesn't have to be just within the form that you're working in. It can be from absolutely anything. I was kind of wondering, like, Poetikah, what you consider, like, what are some, a couple of your most profound influences?
I think just the intricacy and the science of music, because I think I don't know what it is. I think my brain's just been built like this. But when I listen to music, just even a regular song, I'm in there. Like I composed the thing. Okay. My brain's trying to break down the instruments, but it's just the fact that there's this phenomenon that I know for a fact is older than the planet, you know, and completely transcendent and out of this dimension. And we just have access to it now. So I think it's just music in general. And when YouTube came out, and then there's this world, and I'm like 13, 14, and I can just keep typing and typing and typing in music, and it just never ends. And it was blowing my mind at the time, just in general. And I'm like probably the only 13 or 14-year-old that's typing in things like, yeah, Muddy Waters, you know, Billie Holiday. I'm telling you, I'm not actually 30. Outside, it's just always made sense to me. So I think listening to that kind of music of my own volition, from a very early adolescent, that's what's done it. And I think I've just gotten deeper and deeper into that. Like I understood jazz at 15, and then I'll ask somebody else, you know, do you know any jazz? It's like, I think if I listened to jazz, I wouldn't know what it was. And in my heart, I'm like, you know, skip a couple of beats. What did you just say? But I had to remember that you're not like everybody else. You know, you don't get music the same way everybody else does. I think I'm just in love with it. I'm in love with sound and vibration and what it does to you. And I think, yeah, most of my inspiration, like you said, I draw from poets, novelists. I'm a big film fanatic. So I can get inspired by a movie or a quote and then just write a whole poem based on like maybe a sentiment or an exchange of energy that I've seen in a movie. Yeah, could be anything.
What are your top 5 movies?
I don't think I have that anymore. It used to be Shawshank.
Okay. No, take that back. Okay. Pick out 5 of your favorites. Let's put it like pick out 5 of your favorites.
I'm such a film person. I really, really can't think right now, but it's usually something that has an effect on me or an influence on me in terms of the writing or the music. Because I'll go and listen to movie soundtracks and not watch the movie for years at a time. But I feel like I'm watching the movie just by listening to the soundtrack. So those are the ones that get me. So if Bill Street could talk, yeah, that.
Okay.
But I can't watch some movies a lot because I'm such a emotional, watery, empathic person. I don't like feeling those things over and over again, you know.
I don't like crying on airplanes. It's embarrassing.
Oh my God.
Really?
I watched that.
I pull my hoodie over my head. I'm like, okay, God.
Okay. What movie had you crying on an airplane?
Oh, the stupidest ones will do that to me.
Oh, now I really want to know.
What do you consider a stupid movie?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, you know. Oh, yeah, you do.
I actually can't think of anything to pick up. Just thinking about, like, you know, just watching something kind of mindless on a plane, and then, you know,
It just
like you say, I feel it so much that like I don't.
It might be something silly like, oh yeah, they won the jump rope competition. Yay for humans!
Yes.
Why do I feel that? It's just
one that got me sniveling. One that got me like sniveling like a baby was. I was with my daughters. You know, they were teenagers at the time. 1,000 Words, that Eddie Murphy movie. You know, and it was something. You know, it was something about it. At the end, I don't even remember right now, but I just all of a sudden I just broke down and I just couldn't stop crying. And then I realized at some point that it was about, you know, my mom had just passed away like a couple of years ago, and it was somehow related to you know, some kind of some feeling that I had about our relationship, or you know, or something, and it just, and that was it.
through the story of the movie.
Say that again.
Through the story of the movie. The movie
The story of the movie, or
someone had to write that down, so you could be like, oh my God, and then
yeah. And you know, if it's good, I guess if a writer is good, they're able to do that. You know, they're able to make something so basic that that it doesn't matter who is saying it or who is experiencing it. It has some element of truth for everybody. It has some element of one's own life in it.
Yeah.
I remember one movie that was really moving to me was this movie called Life with Martin Lawrence and Eddie Murphy.
Yeah,
it's directed by Ted Demme. And it's kind of a dramedy, and it's a really moving film. And they said, you better not touch, nobody better touch my cornbread, or they're going to be consequences and repercussions.
Yeah. I don't care what you believe. I don't care what you believe.
That was a great movie, and it was awesome because it wasn't fake. It was like actually these two guys are sent to prison for something they didn't do, and it really is like life. Like it's not like nobody comes in, no lawyer comes in to it was and was very, very real. Another movie that was, I think I was mad because I was so emotional, was Toy Story 3.
Everyone said that when it was like
Toy Story 3, when the toys are on the conveyor, when they're on the conveyor belt, and they all like they're done, they're going into the fire, and they all join hands, and like I remember people were audibly bawling in the theater, like audibly crying. I was like, wow. And then later on, it started coming out. I said, yo, man, did you see Toy Story 3? Yo, it messed me up.
You've just been attached to these toys for so long, since what, 1994? When did Toy Story come out or something?
Oh my God, and the premises of that are so thick. And it's really about this kid growing up, and he puts the toys in and this whole thing. It's also about, there's a powerful thing about children growing up too. That's in there, and we lose. It's strangely enough, my daughter just turned 20, and she's traveling. She turned 20 in Paris, so she's having, she's like living that life, you know what I mean? But it's just wild because I was thinking about it, like the transition from 19 to 20 is deep.
19
something. It really is a deep one. Yeah, because like you are leaving being a teenager. That is over.
Yeah.
Yeah, and being that age at this time in history too. I mean, it's been rough for folks that age for sure. The pandemic, the economic, kids are just getting their feet underneath them, and all of a sudden the feet knocked out from underneath them. It's rough. Yeah.
There's a lot of healing that's going to have to go down. My nephew didn't get to do his walk, his graduation walk, and he didn't take it well.
So on that note, I'm really curious, Poetikah, you're so woven into the London and UK poetry and performance poetry scene.
And I was born into the sorrow, thought I'd never love again. You say this little blackbird leaving morsels I no longer had to tire these wings for, in search of sustenance to nourish a soul that felt the fatigue that made its way to the future to greet me just as I arrived at the point. Damn, it's been a long flight. But before we have this long kiss goodnight, we'll continue to wait upon the next pulse of purity to illuminate the way.
Tell us a little bit about the climate. Are the younger people that you're working with, are they hopeful? Are they frustrated? What's happening?
I think life just is a bit more open for them in terms of they're not at the age where it's a bit like, oh, I better start sorting my life out. Otherwise, this is not going to happen like where I am right now. I'm at this very transitional moment where I'm like, I better change. Otherwise, the next decade's not going to be anything resembling what I would like it to be. But I think if you're under like 22, it's not, you've still got all of this figuring out to do, and it's a weird time, but it's still a very open and opportunistic time. I think I just made that one up. But but I think it's a little bit better for them, especially in spoken word. They're just going for it. They got the energy, you know. A lot of them aren't working full time like a lot of us, and they're at all the events and the gigs, and they're getting noticed. And then there's my age group, it's a bit like, oh yeah, got to handle this, and then this has got to be done as well in the balance. And do I actually just want to be a poet, or am I a musician? You know, or am I just a script writer? And so I think when you're younger, it's just generally more hopeful. They have a bit more time, and people are snapping them up because they have the energy to continuously go to gigs and events and network. And, you know, people give younger people money to do things. So that's another thing. They can go to the studio and afford it a little bit more. People are getting more grants, and, you know, there are things out there. I think it just depends who has got the drive to continue, because being an artist in general is just, you know, it's interesting.
So for you, was it just the drive? Was it sitting on YouTube, checking out Billie Holiday, and as a kid that made you want to do this? Or were there people in your life did you have encouragement to do this? Was there, any models in your life, or was everything just, coming from you, and from just being inspired by music and jazz, and then, putting that into words?
Pretty much. I started off by sending really nice text messages to people on the little Walkman, probably tiny now by the time you hold up a smartphone, and those little orangey black things. But, oh, that was a really nice text. Oh, my name's Chelsea in real life. That was a really nice text, Chelsea. Yeah, that was, And I thought, oh, the words do sound okay. So I started writing in the notes, and then I started writing in a book. And then from about, 16, 17, I was jotting down. And then I got a little bit older and thought, I don't have to try to be good at this. And then I felt like, I think this might be my gift. I think this might be the thing, that I didn't have to try to be. It just is what it is, A lot of people never find what that is. But I just realized, I was like, I don't have to, I'm always going to get better and improved compared to what the skill set was like back then in terms of oration and delivery and tone and writing in general. But it's the one thing I was like, no one had to teach me to be a poet. No one had to teach me to be a writer. Do you know what I mean? Or put that fire in me. That was just, that evolved on its own.
When would you say that you noticed the actual passion for it? Did it happen around that time, or, was it something that you could feel that was already building up?
I think during my years at uni, so between 18 and 21, I'm away, schooling and trying to get a degree and things like that. But living away from home, that was my time to just explore, especially where you have a laptop and for the first time you're away from home and you just, okay, I can listen to the music I want to listen to. I'm starting to collect vinyls and records for the first time in my life, and still buying CDs, and people were still, CDs were still a thing, 12 years ago, just about. And watching like all the Spike Lee movies and watching Hidden Colors, and then all the knowledge and the information was just like, I had a chance to just do it, and not be distracted by the things, the places that I grew up in, and Southeast London, things like that. So, it just, the movies and the music and discovering things for myself as a young adult, that really was like, wow, this means something to me. I'm going to gigs. I was going to just pay for tickets and go to gigs and hear other artists live, and hip hop was a thing at the time. I'm a hip hop head initially. So that's where the bars and the lyricism is just, I'm in love with it, honestly. And I was like, this makes sense to me. And if it makes sense to me, then I was just like, I'm going to keep going with it.
You also have a very cinematic approach, like colors, and and I hear all of that in you. And Vernon, when the music that you did, I felt that also helped to bring out that approach.
Felt like that Poetikah is telling a larger than life story, or telling a larger than life, really just kind of again saying, almost giving why she's a poet, why, what she's connected to, and that was very strong that came across very strong to me. And then just kind of chopping it up into phrases just felt right to give, to find a particular line and go, okay, so we're going to have 8 bars or whatever it was in between the next stanza, because there were so many definitive statements that it felt that you know what I mean? And just, okay. And then coming back into it. So it was a beautiful piece to work with. It was a beautiful piece to work with. And I was really thankful for that, because sometimes you'll get something that's just like, you hear something and I don't know where to, okay, what? And that can be a beautiful challenge too, but it felt like Storyteller Nation was very much like a manifesto. Like it's a kind of manifesto to me. And that the sense of a larger, that it was personal, but that Poetikah is dealing with forces that are much larger and a remit that's much larger. You know what I mean? Than her own. It's almost like, okay, I'm a representative of this impulse. And so that, I think that's part of what the larger, the cinematic is. What cinematic is, you either have to be really larger than life, or you have to be so narrow and confined that it takes it's that other kind of movie, right? Yeah. So,
and to wrap it up with that last line, reminding everybody that the answers are already here. I just loved it, because for me, it was that whole piece is such a reminder. In a strange way, it hits me, and the music too is really anchors this. It's kind of like about sovereignty, and reminds me I don't need to go outside looking. That there's that what I need is inside. The answers are already here. I love that about the poem. The kind of this, not in your face, but really rich call to yourself and to sovereignty.
The Saint Disruption Podcast, recorded and mixed by Hamilton Media Design at Sidehouse Records.
We will continue this dialogue with Poetikah and Vernon Reid regarding their collaboration of poetry and music titled Storyteller Nation in part 2 of this episode.
Osiris.